Welcome to Film Courage. This is episode 149. My name is Karen Warden.
And I'm David Brandon. You can find our archives on iTunes, filmcourage.com, latalkradio.com, and Movie Garage.
We are thrilled that today we have with us on the line director Tony Zierra and in studio actor Chad Lindberg from the doc My Big Break. And if you've been anywhere around David and myself for the past few months, you know that we've been telling everyone about this film.
Yeah, we certainly are.
We've been talking about
everyone we're telling about this film. This is a film you guys have to see.
You sure do.
It's formally entitled, an earlier version of the film is Carving Out Our Name, and that was back in 2001. It was abandoned after a whirlwind of interest and then total silence on the part of industry professionals. The director, Tony Zierra, destroyed the film and he left Hollywood.
Yeah, he then returned to the film, and not L.A., a few years ago to resurrect a new version, calling it My Big Break, making it a slightly more telling version about the real-life experience of 5 aspiring artists living in a house in the L.A. Miracle Mile district back in the mid to late 90s. Director Tony Zierra and 4 aspiring actors, Chad Lindberg, Gregory Fawcett, Wes Bentley, and Brad Rowe, all became roommates around this time.
Documenting for 10 years through video footage, photos, narration from Tony Zierra, shows 4 young men from various parts of the U.S. who came to Los Angeles in search of an acting career in stardom, just like so many people we know.
And 3 of the roommates, Chad Lindberg, with us in studio again, Wes Bentley, and Brad Rowe, got that wish and then some. My Big Break shows the triumphs and struggles of these men, including Tony's own roller coaster ride with the business.
You may know Chad from October Sky, The Fast and the Furious, and Supernatural, Wes Bentley from American Beauty, and the upcoming The Hunger Games, and Brad Rowe from Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss and Shelter.
We'd also like to extend our thanks to the film's producer, Elizabeth Yaffe, for all of her help in getting us the film, arranging this interview, and coordinating the excellent article by Tony Zierra entitled Final Film Courage, and now on filmcourage.com.
Please welcome to Film Courage via telephone, director Tony Zierra, and in studio, actor Chad Lindberg.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely.
We've been super excited
super
for this
pumped
one.
for this. I'm nervous.
This day couldn't come soon enough. It could not come soon enough.
The stories of the 5 of you who lived in this house that you refer to as Maslin, named after the street where it was located, so we're not sure that even 2 shows would be able to do this justice.
Well, but even before we get into it, Karen, you have your own Maslin story. You have to tell this story.
Yeah, it's funny how the universe works because I was driving yesterday by LACMA and I was kind of lost for a second, and I looked up and there's the street sign Maslin, and I was just like, wow. I remember I called you. Mm-hmm. I parked and I called you to say, what are the odds of that? And I think I've passed through the area before, but something it was surreal. So.
Yeah,
interesting.
And Chad was just telling us that there's just sort of this magnetic force with this house on Maslin.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, you guys can connect with Chad on Twitter at Chad Lindberg and Tony at My Big Break. You can find us at Film Courage. We do read tweets on the air. The hashtag for the show is #Film Courage, and you can follow it all along on tweetchat.com.
All right. Well, again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us, and we'll jump right in. Tony, in the movie, we see that you were roommates with these 4 then undiscovered actors, but we don't know exactly how you guys came together. Was it Craigslist? Was it fate? Did you put an ad in the paper looking for roommates? How did this all transpire?
Fate. I needed a place to live. I think Chad met Wes on a set of a movie earlier on.
Yeah.
Correct. And I met Greg on a small shoot that I was doing, and Brad also. And then I needed a place to live. Chad suggested maybe I should rent a couch. So everybody kind of showed up from it's typical LA house. Where somebody refers someone, and we just all became roommates without knowing anything about the documentary that it would actually take place later on.
Okay, interesting. And Chad, were these your first roommates, or had you had prior roommates?
Yeah, no, these were my first roommates. I got there a while before everybody else, and Greg was actually there before anybody. And when I went there were a few other guys that were living there, and then over time they moved out, and then eventually came Tony, Brad, and then Wes, and then that's when the house just kind of took on a life of its own.
Okay.
You know, to help set up this whole conversation, we're going to try to focus on you a little bit early here, Chad, just to kind of bring out a little bit more of your story. You know, when you graduated high school, how soon was it before you moved to LA?
It was about a year after I graduated high school. I knew I wanted to come down here and you know, shoot for a career, but I kind of had to wait, you know, for the right time, and I booked a movie in Seattle that had come up from LA called Black Circle Boys, and I had gotten cast as one of the leads. They took a chance on a Northwest boy, and got the movie. And as I was filming the movie, an agent from here that had a client in the movie came up and saw me and said, "When you come to Los Angeles, you'll be taken care of." And I came to LA right after I was done shooting the flick. I was 19 and walked into a nice agency, which is kind of rare. Doesn't really happen. I definitely paid that price later on in my career, but at the time, you know, I walked right into a really good situation.
And was your goal to be a working actor, or really did you want to be a star? What was your...
I knew I wanted to be an actor, and I knew I wanted everything that came along with it. I just didn't know if that was going to happen or when. But I just knew it was going to happen. Just something I always knew.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what can you expand on that? I mean, did you have any doubts, because I think we're all young, we come to LA and we all think we're special, we all think we have it.
Yeah.
I mean, was that a strong part of your character at that time? You figured, I'm coming here, I have this city in my hand, I'm going to make this happen?
Yeah, I rolled in a little cocky and a little knowing, which I think you kind of have to some degree. I just knew it was something I knew I was good at, and I had some success up in Seattle. There was just going to be no stopping me, and that was just, I put my blinders on and just went to LA. Now I look back, I'm like, man, that was scary. What in the heck am I thinking? I'm glad it worked out, but it was something I kind of just knew.
It's great how youth has that. I can remember doing the same when I was 18, and it's just interesting how you just have no fear, whereas if you're in your mid-30s, you'd overthink it, and you worry about money, and yeah, that's the beauty of youth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tony, it's really interesting in the movie when Brad Rowe hits it big, you point out that the other roommates were, of course, excited for Brad, but at the same time, reality sets in that I think, and this happens to all of us really, that then the other guys felt like, ooh, what are the odds of us making it if the one guy in Maslin hits it big? So, and you see kind of, that they're happy for him, but was there competition between the rest of them after this? I mean, what was the energy like between the guys at that time once Brad is sort of taking off?
Well, it's tough because, as you know, LA is like super difficult, and so the odds of like having one guy in the house getting that big chance, and is as we mentioned in the movie, it's like there's a big difference between getting a part and getting your break. And so, people get parts, but like getting really the big break and going to Sundance or Toronto, etc., that was like, okay, this is unheard of. And so we were all like, ooh, I guess this is it. This is the only one that is going to get that break in the house. So, it obviously was also really tougher on Greg because he, as Chad mentioned, he was the first in the house. And so you had, every time you get a new roommate moves in, they would just get their break, and it was very intense for him. So yeah, I'm sure also every time one of them got a movie, the others were like, well, I got a movie too. So it's always very competitive, but very supportive at the same time. It's easy to also, it's almost exciting to like have a friend in your own house that has a big movie out, and you feel like, oh wow, it's like it's possible, but it's also frightening because you may not get that chance.
Okay.
Chad, can you expand on that? I mean, were you inspired by Brad, in this movie that's going to Sundance and just sort of like all the acclaim that's coming his way? I mean, were you inspired? Did you feel competitive? What was going on at that time for you?
Yeah, he had his moment there. I mean, we were all working, kind of, so it was never like competitive in the way like, oh my god, I hate you, like I can't believe you just got this movie. Like it was never competitive. We supported each other, and we helped each other. We built each other up, when we were like down, and we were happy for each other. We really were, and we were so excited about all the exciting stuff that was all of a sudden happening to us. And we looked at it with a sense of humor too. We weren't always serious about it. We weren't actors, you know. But I do think it was harder for Greg in a lot of ways to see all of us go to these huge premieres, and you know, it was tough. But you know, we had a good time. Overall, we weren't mad at each other or anything like that.
No, they were very supportive. You just see the subtleties, or I guess being behind the camera too. That you see just a sense of frustration sometimes, because you know each is waiting for that part that they want, and so I would sometimes sense there would be tension, and it all depended. And sometimes there was tension not just because somebody else was working; it's because you're just waiting and waiting.
Right.
But there was always somebody who was working in the house.
Yeah, the competition comes, I think, with yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't with the guys in the house, because there's no competing with any of the guys in the house, because Brad had his thing, Wes had his thing, Greg has his thing, I had my thing, so we're all very different.
I think that's a great point, too, that you bring up, Tony, that waiting, because so much is in LA, you're waiting for that email, that call.
Yeah.
And two, I think you both mentioned in Casey Ryan's interview that how competitive LA is. I mean, you need a headshot just to get a waiter job or a bartending job. I mean, it's totally competitive. I'm wondering, what were your day jobs at this time?
Mine?
But yeah,
you know, that's the part. We don't get that in the movie. We just get we get all the acting. I mean, what were you guys doing? You know, I mean, was the acting, you know, able to carry you in those? You know, obviously, it wasn't able to carry in the early days. So what did you guys turn to?
My story was a little different, I guess, because as you know, for filmmakers, like we always laugh about this, that like you really don't make money, you spend money. And for filmmakers, it's like, you know, I had my own jobs on the side. The guys would work occasionally. Probably I've seen Chad maybe mainly work. And Brad had worked at an agency, like in the mailroom for a while. I think Chad, you delivered food, right?
Yeah.
For a while, like, off and down and off.
When I first moved to LA, I delivered Italian food for 2 weeks, and then I booked Buffy, and then that was it, luckily.
Who was the worst delivery driver ever, probably.
No, come on.
But yeah, I had jobs like, my worst was like telemarketing, because I was selling plastic gloves to hospitals, and the thing they made me promise whoever would buy, like the nurse, to get a free box of chocolate. And it was part of a scam I discovered later on. People weren't getting their chocolates, and it was just horrible to just sit there and, like, you know, do the same speech every day. I'm like, please buy a box of gloves and you'll get a free box of CC candy or something like that.
Oh,
and, you know, but I did all kinds of jobs, and you know, did labels at Lightning Dubs, and, you know, just kept floating along with having garage sales to just keep the movie going.
Can I add something?
Oh,
what kind of world do we live in where somebody doesn't get their chocolates?
Especially when they buy latex gloves.
You know?
Oh, there you go. You need the. All right, Chad, I want to throw in there. I mean, that in itself is really remarkable. In LA for 2 weeks, wow. You know, so I mean, you have a day job for 2 weeks and you book this role. I mean, that in itself is so remarkable. How crucial was that? I mean, if you don't book that role early on, do you see an entirely different course, you know, coming your way? Because, you know, on one level, it's like people get a chance to literally just see you as an actor. They don't see you as anything else. They just see you as an actor. Right. How crucial was that?
I guess looking back at it now, that it you know, I feel very lucky that it did work out. I got Buffy, and then like a month later I booked a 2-spot on ER, which was a pretty big deal, and then it just kept snowballing from there. So, you know, it wasn't until like 10 years down the road that I really sort of had to like go backwards a little bit, and at this time I was famous, so it really, you know, stirred up a whole different set of challenges.
Crazy house, you know. It was really unusual, I think.
How much time and money did you spend on acting classes?
0.
Okay.
0. I did acting in high school and did plays, and then I've never taken an acting class until like 3 years ago. I searched somebody out. Her name is Margie Ballantyne, and she's absolutely awesome. She's an acting coach, And, because my shtick, you get to a point as an actor where your well dries up and you need to challenge yourself and push. So I started taking classes and, working on my craft. But until that point, I never...
And what about the other guys in the house?
Wes went to Juilliard.
He dropped out, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Did he? Yeah. And then Brad? I don't know, Tony, what's...
Brad did, he did take some class, like on and off, but he was, he was just discovered at the mailroom at UTA, and he was just reading scripts. And somebody saw him and said, "Hey, we think you've got something." And that was it. Was and then and Greg, of course, went to USC. He studied theater and drama, so everybody was doing their. It was really strange for this house because at the same time, I had a lot of friends in LA that I knew were trying it. That were living in different areas, and it was just very strange to just see that house just constantly. People just booking parts, getting really major roles, and I think that was once everybody started to work, it was just a complete change, and it really threw me off. It was super shocking, and not because I was just doing the movie. It was really, really unheard of, one after the other. It was it got to a point where I would meet people on the street and they'd be like, "What is this one doing? What's the secret?" And I'm like, "I have what secret?" It's very strange.
Is part of the secret the fact that, even though you guys weren't going to acting class, here you are, this documentary is being made. Tony has a camera and he's filming you guys. In a sense, that's sort of your acting class or acting school. Is that how you view those early days? How often was the camera rolling?
Camera was always rolling, yeah.
Always, right?
Always,
yeah, and they were always performing. They were always we would nonstop do short films, and everybody would name it. It was done on camera, whether it was for the documentary or not. Don't forget, I have over 200 hours of footage since then, and it was so difficult to just kind of let go of almost 198 hours and just keep an hour and a half of the film at the end. It was really tough to edit, but at the same time, there was so much stuff that wasn't even part of the documentary, that just people would reenact other movies, they would do plays, they would dance, they would jump off the roof. It was just constant. It's almost like it was a little small independent mini studio running all the time in the house.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, was it a shared experience? Tony, are you literally filming these guys? And and obviously the performers, are they going back and are they critiquing the work? Are you guys having sort of viewing parties and laughing and having fun in that sense?
No, it depends. It's there was stuff that I would film and I would kind of guard in a way of because I didn't know where the stuff was going. So I would just film stuff and just keep it aside. But then we also had, I think the first job Chad got as an acting gig, he bought a camera, a small video camera. We're hey, I don't have to keep renting. And so this camera just started getting bounced from Wes would film, Chad would film, and just constantly. So sometimes we would sit and watch the goofy stuff we did or the little short films. Mm-hmm. But as far as the stuff for the actual documentary, occasionally would look at it, but I was kind of a little sensitive about the stuff that I would sometimes save aside.
At what point did you know, okay, I have a movie here? Because I think you kind of wrestled with the fact that you couldn't figure out maybe what you wanted to film, and then at some point you realized, this is it, this is what I want to film.
Well, to be honest with you, there were two things going on. One is even though everybody was so supportive, I was worried that they would just get tired. They would be turn your camera off, because this is when are you going to be done? Because again, remember, it's if somebody was happy, okay, you could get away with it and turn off the camera and start rolling. But when there was a little tension or somebody's going through something tough, I had the fear. And that was only my personal thing, that they would say, okay, you know what? No, I don't want this on camera, or you're pushing it now. So I had that one side of it. And then the other side was, it's almost I thought really everybody was going to leave. That was because of all the friends that, that I met in LA, that there was always really a lot of broken dreams, but people always were working too, So I didn't know if I was going to film everybody just going home, including myself, or it's just going to, when one worked, I figured, well, this is it. This is the one guy, and that's it. And then the second, and I was surprised. And the third, and it really threw me off. And I was like, you kidding? I was just so excited. So for me, I was very selfish. I just wanted it to go on forever and ever and keep capturing as much as I could.
Wait, actually, Tony, I mean, because you say that, you say like you thought the end of this story, the end of this movie is going to be that each of these guys is going to pack their bags and go home. I mean, did you ever share those feelings with the guys? Like, I mean, was that ever discussed amongst you guys?
I think it was unspoken. I think we all, like, again, it's a tough business, so we were like, Brad did mention to me a couple of times. He said, listen, you know what, I'm giving this 5 years. If it doesn't happen, I'm leaving. And I'm like, are you kidding? And he's like, yeah, he's very,
wow.
Each had really their concept and the way they lived life. And Brad was very practical. He's like, this is it. I'm going to do this for 5 years, and that's it. Greg, on the other hand, as you saw in the film, he says, I'm taking this to the toilet. So you had really different, the personalities are so, the spectrum is just so wide, and that's what made it so interesting to keep filming these guys. Mm-hmm. You just couldn't get enough.
Tony, at the heart of it, how much was it that these guys wanted to be famous, in your opinion, versus wanting to be professional actors, and what is the fine line that separates the two things?
Each is different again, so it's hard to answer the question like, as far as breaking it down for each person, but I really truly what I saw is that there was two groups. One group would be really interested in, Chet could speak for himself, but I know that Chet liked to perform. He just used to get very excited about being in front of the camera. Wes loved to analyze. Brad just had fun with it, but again, at the end of the day, they all wanted to work. So, but also in the beginning, when they started working, their mindset was different than later on. So I think it's almost like you grow as an artist or as an actor. And I saw the arc of growth. So it's like in the beginning, I would capture moments with them where they just want to have fun, and then it would get to another point where you start to hear, no, this is about my craft, and then it would get to another point, and it's like I need a big role, or I need to be more of a very intense character actor. It was always changing, and so that's really my answer to it. It's really hard to sum up with who won and where they were. They were always. Again, 10 years, so it's like you could imagine, every year it was different.
Yeah, people change a lot in 10 years. And we were just driving over here thinking, there's so many people in this town that want the glory of it, and then there's just a small percentage, it seems like, that are willing to put in the work. We were just talking about that. Yeah.
Exactly, and that was a big key because I've seen, it's almost like really what I appreciated from the guys, and I think mainly Chad and Wes tended to do that more on their own, where, again, I go back to everybody's different. We had almost our own group of constantly filming each other and just going out there and trying different things. Greg was he had more of almost a methodical way of doing things. He was only focused on auditions, but at the same time also extremely distracted. And that's why I love the characters in the movie, and I still look at them as characters aside from being best friends. And then you had Brad as almost, he was a businessman.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting to see the approach, and also definitely. To see the consequences of that later on, which I think, in my opinion, also plays a big role.
Yeah, there was
I can't help but you thinking of the
same
moment.
Same scene, yeah, where
they're thinking of the
Brad's
moment in the
roof.
movie. Oh, are you thinking of the roof? I'm thinking of the one where he's at Sundance and he's just I got people back in LA working for me. Here we are. Things are happening at Sundance, and I got people back in LA working for me. What were you going to say, Chris?
I love the scene where Brad's on the roof getting this photo shoot, and Greg looks like he's just woken up, and his hair's, and he's just looking up.
Could you imagine how I felt when I saw Greg down there and I caught that moment? I was
it was great.
My God,
that was unbelievable.
That was awesome.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
I think this is a good moment to turn to you, Chad, because you've worked with a lot of actors, and you've seen them at all different stages of their careers in terms of maybe the very beginning You know, how often have you been in a position where maybe you're working with a young actor who really at that point in time it's more about the fame rather than just doing the work? I mean, do you pull them aside? Do you have any discussions with them? If you did, what would you say to them?
You know, when I'm on set, I kind of mind my own business. You know, I think everyone is in it for a different reason, and you know, there are those Hollywood people that come across, and you know, I just kind of let them be. I don't really have much to say. I know why I'm in it. You know, if I were to pull them over, I'd be like, what are you doing? Stop. Like, no one cares. Like, I don't know. Like, some people take themselves way too seriously, and you're just an actor. That's it. It's not, you know.
And you've worked with, just name after name. You know, you've worked with a lot of working actors, a lot of well-known actors. You know, what do you see in them? You know, where do you see in terms of what their mindset is when they're on set? You know, what do you gain from being around some of the folks you've worked with?
Just how to carry yourself. You know, professionalism. You know, and working hard. I mean, working hard. It's you know, you're on set for 12, 14 hours sometimes, and it's a lot of work. So, you know, I like to watch people and how they handle it, how they handle the set, how they handle fame, how they handle the crew. I think it's all very important, and I think at this level, you need to be respectful to your fellow actors and to your crew and to everybody, because it's totally a huge blessing to be able to work in this town. So, you know, if you're in that level, man, just be cool.
We have actor Chad Lindberg in studio, director Tony Zierra on the line. We're talking about their film, My Big Break. You know, Chad, how often was Tony following you around? I mean, was he following you around on auditions? I mean, you know, how often would he leave the house and follow you guys? Because here's the thing. I can't help but think this. It's like, you guys are young actors. I mean, obviously we know the result, you know, of sort of like the status you guys reached. I just wonder, is the fact that you guys were having this documentary made, you know, this cameras following you around, was that sort of influential, you think, in any way? I'm trying to come up with some sort of explanation or reason, and it just, you know, LA is the kind of city where, like, everyone, you know, whether you be at a party or just you're out somewhere, and everyone's always, like, looking around, like, who's here, who's here?
Who can I talk to?
And do you think the fact that this camera was always around was a factor?
I don't know that it was a factor. I mean, because we were actors and we're always hamming it up in front of the camera. We were always trying to push each other into outdoing each other, as you see in a movie. I mean, we were crazy, and and you know, Tony always had a camera. You'd turn around and he'd be like, "There, please, I am filming you," in his Tony voice. But it was cool. I you know, and we all understood back in the day that I think this was going to be a tool that was used down the line for actors or people that wanted to come to LA, or I don't know. We just, you know, I don't think it really, I don't know. I'm used to cameras, and so is everybody else. Yeah.
Tony, how many auditions did you go on with these guys? I mean, were you a presence, or you just kind of like let them do their thing?
Actually, no. I didn't go on many auditions, and here's ironically why. They just started working, and it was like, they were like, in the very, how can I explain it? It was like, in the beginning, I thought half of my shooting will be about auditions. But then once they took off, they were just like, the scripts were coming to the door, and they were just getting offers, and it wasn't really, there were, of course, like a few auditions where, like, I just wasn't allowed to go in. I'm not going to go talk to Joel Schumacher that I have to insist I have to come in and be on the audition. But auditions kind of disappeared. It was very strange. Like, I remember I thought I would, like, follow Wes for a while about, like, auditions, etc. And it's like, once he got American Beauty, that's it. He could just pick whatever he wants. So it kind of really changed. And sometimes, you know, I knew that I tried to stay away from auditions as much as possible, too, because there were always, like you mentioned, there was always other actors like, sitting there waiting. The ones I shot would I would know the filmmakers, and I would just be inside, or I just get the tape. Mm-hmm. And so that made it much easier for me.
You know, Tony, on the other side of all this, you know, the film got into to the Toronto National Film Festival, and you had distributors and just all kinds of people in Hollywood sort of fighting over the film. But I want to touch on September 10th, 2001. How much do you remember of that night, and what can you tell us about
everything.
September 10th, 2001?
Everything. I mean, that's what changed everything for us. It was because it was the high of highs, and the next day was the lows of lows. It was just it was an intense experience.
So can you paint the picture for us? You know, what exactly happened on September 10th?
Well,
what happened before that? The whole
sure.
deal.
Well, basically, this screening, the big premiere, was scheduled for September 10th at night. We had the premiere, and I thought we might have, a couple of hundred people. There was almost like 1,000 people in there. And so there was a big theater. It was like well received. Greg did almost like, Greg literally...
He arrived that night.
Loved it. Yeah, it was his stand-up comedy night. He stood up in front of the audience and he just kept cracking jokes. People loved him. People loved the movie, and they had to actually kick us out of the theater after the Q&A because it just went on and on. And then we had an after party, which I couldn't even get into, which I thought it was very...
You couldn't get into your own after party?
Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, I got to the door, and then it's funny when you actually... in LA, and you're going, oh, what should we call the movie? Carving out our name. I have this concept in my head, and then suddenly to come to the door, and then they say, this is the party for Carving Out Our Name. Are you on the list? And you're going, no, it's I'm the filmmaker, sir. You got to have it. And I'm okay, this is a joke. Because so then I stood by the door, and I hear, I would see people come up to the bouncers or whatever you want to call them, and they're going, I know Carving Out Our Name. I'm with the actors and people that we didn't even know. And so everybody was trying to get in the party, including, I went in, there was Mark Wahlberg who was there, agents. So I'm going, it's how weird this little thing that started at the house, it suddenly now has a premiere party. And so, so to make a long story short, we went to the party, and I didn't want to close the deal that night. I didn't want any money that night. I didn't want to do any business that night. There was, at the time, I felt like it was late. It was the first night. I figured, let's just tackle this in the morning. I wanted to be more, whatever word, stupid or very fun, sentimental, whatever you want to call it. I figured this was just about the friends. Everybody was very open. They let me capture their life, etc. And I said, I just don't want to do business till the morning. And I don't think my decision really affected anything. Whatever was going to happen that night or the morning was going to, I don't think anybody's going to hand me a check at night. But, and the agents were ready to, Ketchen Elwes, as I mentioned in the article, he was repping the movie. And he said that, people were really interested. There were offers coming in, but yes, we're not going to do any deals. And I said, great. And met everyone. And I heard that night that, from someone that Mark Wahlberg had this concept in his mind, which I would discover later that was Entourage.
Oh, really?
And he was there looking around. And so I was like, well, that's great. I met him, said hello, talked, whatever. And everybody just had a good time. I went back to the hotel. I think I slept for maybe an hour. I took a taxi and left the party because I was starting to freak out. I just couldn't believe that the movie was done. And that I would actually have a movie done and be looked at as maybe a filmmaker, that dream was. So I had to really get away for half an hour because I was really overwhelmed. And then when I came back, and I think they called me in the morning. It was the publicist and Elizabeth Yaffe, the producer. She called in the morning. She said, "Watch TV." And of course, I turned it on the TV, and all I saw was smoke coming out of a building. I didn't really know what was happening. And they were sounded like they don't want to go to the screening. We had the press screening in the morning. And I thought they were pulling something on me as if they don't want to work hard or whatever. So then I got them what are you talking about? You're going to be down there. And so I went down there to the press screening. I opened the door, and there was literally one person in the theater. And so, of course, I went crazy. So then I went upstairs, looked on the sidewalk, and it's literally the entire sidewalk was people on cell phones crying. And then that's when I heard that it was a passenger plane, because I thought it was a helicopter blade hit the windows or something. And when I saw that, it was like, that was it. We all like kind of completely forgot about the movie. They announced that they shut down the festival, which they did resume on the last day, I believe. And just like, life completely changed. And then that following night, our agent said like we were going to have dinner. There was like Sony Classic was there, and like a couple of other distributors that maybe we could talk to. The actors and everybody said, let's donate some. If we do the sale, we'll donate some percentage to the cause, or just like because of the catastrophes in New York, etc. But I didn't think that was going to affect the movie, but we weren't thinking movie anymore. And then the heat kind of died down, and it seemed like that Cassian wanted to just... People left, and then I'm sure you remember, they started to say, well, that people's accounts were... that the whole industry was being affected, that buyers left town, etc. So they said, let's just pick this up in L.A. when we get back. And then we all left, and that was it.
Just to help set it up here, Tony, leading up to the premiere, or this whole premiere, what kind of advice, what kind of people did you have around the film, like leading up to it? You said you didn't want to make a deal that night. Who did you have in your ear, and kind of what advice were you being given?
Well, I was being given that I was told that basically we'll sell. As they break in territories, some people were saying we'll sell domestic and hold on to foreign, or we'll sell foreign and hold on to domestic because that's where the money is. And so you had a lot of people that were interested to buy different territories, but we also wanted, I was more not inclined, I wanted to do something with MTV or someone that would actually have this as, because of just the age group, and like, at the time that was a big thing about reality. When I started filming, remember, it wasn't really like talked about much. People, it was very odd to like, oh, you're going to follow your friend. And so by then, by 2001, it was starting to kind of be very interesting thing about like, oh, you really had access to actors, etc. So we thought at one point that Cassian wanted to go with MTV, but then was Miramax was there. Some people wanted to buy foreign. There were also independent distributors that wanted to put in all the money, take all the foreign rights, and leave the domestic aside till we get back. So there was just all kinds of deals floating around. My concern was that I didn't want, we've all heard the stories, is that they were going to take the movie and recut it. So I was kind of adamant, is like that you're not going to do that, because so I wanted to really, whoever was going to give us a deal, I wanted to make sure that they're not going to really change the film on me. I was worried that they may say, well, 3 are known, let's cut down a known guy, whatever, So I was really more kind of cautious, like I wanted to sit down and hear what the distributor was planning to do with the movie. And that was it.
It seems like a lot of the calls and communication just pretty much came to a stop. Why is it this film is so sort of in the dark? Because we believe so much in it, and we tell everybody we know about it. Is it blacklisted? Does Hollywood not want the general public to see it?
Great question, which it took me a long time to keep kept thinking about that, and I asked around a lot. And what happened is this: the industry wasn't really interested in the documentary before till it went to Toronto. Once it went to Toronto, you just couldn't stop it, and industry suddenly wanted to be part of it. And they just overnight they were fighting about wrapping the movie. And that was from CA to William Morris, etc. And I was aware of that I know that this was happening because of the buzz. And I did get offers that people wanted to talk about like other movies in the future. I was like, let's just focus, let's just sell this movie, and we'll see what happens. And then once the heat died down in Toronto, and the movie came here in LA, I think this is when like industry watched the movie, and I think it's almost like they were nervous. I still go back to the time where, like, Wes's people at the time were really a little tense about the movie, and I don't think it was really the movie. I think it's also where Wes was at the time. What I mean by that is that he was through a darker period. He was going there, I guess, and that just kind of called too much attention to that, I would assume. And that's when I would call back and I would ask for my print. They lost my print at one point, and then I would start to get my calls returned. And there was just like a lot of chaos. Other agents wanted to finish the deal. They wouldn't let them take the deal and finish it. And then I would call back again, and they would say, well, I don't know. I'm sitting with them in the meeting at William Morris in the morning, and they would sit together. And then the other agent would say, I would like to run with this. There are deals out there. And they would just call me back and say, he just doesn't want to talk about it. And that's Cassian. And I just never heard from him. I mean, it's so shocking to be a filmmaker, right? And go to a festival, have an agent, et cetera, and everybody's like, he was obsessed with the movie. And then to, like, suddenly just no one wants to talk to you. It was really threw me off. And I felt like there was just pressure. Possibly pressure on Cassian at the time. Nobody really ever came back and explained what happened. All I know is that Wes's agent was at the screening at the time. He watched the movie. He was extremely tense. Didn't want to talk to me. He walked out. And so to them it was too exposing. But to people, let's say like Chad, or I would say Chad is, I mean, he's there. He can tell you, but he always saw it as a learning tool. And a teaching tool in a sense. So he wanted people to see what it was like. That was my intention from the beginning. All the guys actually felt and saw it that way. But, again, we were all surrounded by agents and managers that, we may have a certain thought at one moment, but the agent and the manager doesn't see it that way. And so they would step in, and they would, including Wes's manager, which at the time was Lee Daniels, who's the director now. He was going to run with the movie, and then he disappeared. So it was I was being bounced from one person to another in hope that they would sell the movie, and then time just kept going, and nothing is happening. And we all know that it's when you get to that feel, when you get to this period where actually time is running and no one is calling you, no one is giving you a straight answer.
Yeah,
you know what that means.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let me throw in this question, because we're coming down to our final 5 minutes here, so we're going to try to pack in some more stuff. Chad, is it possible to sustain an acting career in Los Angeles if you don't have a so-called big break of some kind? Because am I right that you have to get something to pop?
You have to be working. You have to have perseverance. I think you have to have some talent to back it up, to continue working, to have that, to go the distance over the years. You definitely have to have some talent, I think. And yeah, having those pops along the way, it, doesn't hurt. I mean, it's nice to have those mile markers along the way, that sort of take you to that next level, hopefully. But everyone's different, everyone has a different, you could be Shia LaBeouf and have every major movie handed to when you're 19, but he was in it, since he was, young. So it's just, or you could be in your 50s and have your big break, and, everyone's different. I've had a steady burn, which in the long run is the way to go for me, you don't get too ahead of yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you have this one especially great scene in the movie where you're talking about when you're 18 or 19, you're having all this great work thrown at you, and you don't realize kind of what you have, And just as we wrap up here, can you talk about what life was like when stuff wasn't as easy, when work wasn't coming your way? I think you had to move out of your place, and some really traumatic stuff happened.
Yeah, gosh, it was, I don't know how long ago it was now, 8 years ago? No. Gosh, I don't know. Yeah, there came a time I couldn't afford rent anymore. Things just got way out of hand. I had a lot of, financial issues that just got on top of me. I had to move out of my house. I moved back home for a little bit with my folks, and I had to kind of like work it out. I got a little cabin on the lake and back home up in Washington, and just sorted it out for a little while, and then I came back to LA and just sort of like, you know, built up my, you know, confidence again. But yeah, it was a tough time, but you know, it builds character, and I think you all need to go through the ups and the downs to appreciate, you know, when things do happen, you appreciate it that much more.
And what is it that's different about now? So you went through that dark time, and so what do you think it is now where it's going to be different? Do you think just being older, or just having been through sort of life's challenges? What is it?
I think, yeah, having gone through all that, I've been here a while now, so, you know, nothing really surprises me too much. You know?
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, just, you know, yeah, I think being here as many years, and, you know, yeah.
Tony, you know, this, I guess we just final question to you, Tony, you know, because after this movie didn't take off, you know, your life just basically collapsed in front of you there, you know, and you also reached rock bottom with this project. Can you just can you touch on how you sort of put the pieces back together, how you got your life back on track, from the pinnacle, from the mountaintop, you know, to just falling on your face there?
Well, it took me a while to figure out what to do, and then I realized, you know, my conclusion of, like, in the sense of how I could do this was like to reset. I had to completely reset off from the beginning, and I you know, dealt with my own demons, and like just tried to like get myself in a more of a clear place, and then looked at the movie as if I've never worked on it a single day, and that nothing happened with it, and I just basically looked at it as like brand new footage sitting in the box. And the difference this time was that I actually put my own story in the movie, because I wasn't in carving. I never appeared in carving or said a single word in carving. And so in this one, so then I started just from scratch. I started editing, and I just wanted to tell the story completely from beginning to end, including my own. And at the time, like, you know, it was much easier. We had Final Cut, so I was able to have my own studio at home. I could have as many drives as I want and put all the footage on it, and I didn't have to do this offline, online thing, which drove me crazy when I was editing in 2001. And I just went for it, and I edited the movie, and it was actually more liberating to actually be able to tell even my own story and be just put myself also out there just as much as the guys. And I just finished it, and now it's my big break.
You know,
and I don't mean my big break. I mean the movie My Big Break.
You know, and we're overjoyed. You know, we're overjoyed that you stuck it out. You know, 10 years on the same project, the same film. It's something, you know, we can all admire. You know, the courage that you've shown here and getting this done. And to
leave LA and
and overcome everything you've had to overcome.
Yeah. It's really important to me, I felt like, because when I went to LA, I would like go to every library and video store and just try to find like anything I could learn from. And I would listen, as we all filmmakers and actors, we listen to like the audio track on a DVD, etc., the commentary. And I would, you know, I'm so happy to just have this thing where like you could literally sit and watch the reaction of each person in the movie, the decisions they make, the lessons, and I wanted also the story of just like for filmmakers to see like that's what you're going to hear, that's what people will tell you, and even if everything falls apart and it's all destroyed, you still can get back on again and do what you wanted to do and just keep that dream going, because it really only ends when you let it end. And so that was really a good story for me to tell. And I have to still again mention, you know, when Chad called and told me that Heath Ledger died, that was also another point where I felt like I had to. You know, we just all get caught up in that business, as you know, and it's almost like you have to stay grounded and clear and just stay healthy and just keep trying, because you know no one's stopping you. You're the only one going to stop yourself.
We love the conversation, and we will plainly say to everyone listening to this, each of you listening, you have to see this movie. There's
sure
no
do.
way you can listen to Film Courage and not see My Big Break. It's a movie you have to see. We've been speaking with director Tony Zierra and actor Chad Lindberg from the documentary My Big Break. You can find out more about Tony, Chad, and My Big Break at mybigbreakmovie.com, at My Big Break on Twitter, My Big Break on Facebook, and of course at Chad Lindberg on Twitter.
Yeah, and thanks again, guys, for your time today. I mean, we really want more people watching the film and talking about it, and you can find it on Distrify and also Amazon.com, and there's also direct links to those sites on the website, mybigbreak.com. And again, we'd like to extend our thanks to the film's producer, Elizabeth Yaffe, for all her help in arranging this interview.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for having
Yeah.
us and being such a huge support. It
Enjoyed it
really
very
means
much.
a
Thank
lot
you
to
for giving
us.
us that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone listening, and a special shout out to the Supernatural fans who come in droves to listen.
Supernatural.
Cool.
They are the best fans in the world, really.
You guys are
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank
Cool.
you,
Yeah,
guys.
this is really
Great
cool.
interview.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And to all of you out there listening, have a great week.